13-week video coaching series. Again, Nick Fenton here with TickerTank.com, and this week's topic is relative strength and relative weakness. Now, relative strength and relative weakness are two very important elements or tools to have in your tool belt, if you will, with regard to trading. This more pertains to short-term trading, but it's just an important thing to know just overall for just being a better trader. So first thing we really want to talk about here are the indice ETFs that you want to refer to when you're deciding whether something is relatively strong or relatively weak. And we'll get to that here in just a second as far as what I mean. The indice ETFs, the main ones, SPY, that's the S&P 500 ETF, and that covers mainly large and mid-cap stocks. Then we have QQQQ, which is the NASDAQ 100 ETF, and that covers tech stocks primarily. We have DIA, which is the Dow 30 ETF, and that's going to cover your blue chips, which are large caps as well, but they're the best of the best, you know. IWM is the Russell 2000, and that's going to cover our small caps. So this pretty much covers everything we need. Now, what do I mean by relatively strong, relatively weak? You want to use these as your benchmark as far as whether a stock is relatively strong or relatively weak to its respective indice. So, let's say for example Broadcom. There's a tech stock. What would the respective indice be for Broadcom? It would be QQQQ. We talked about that's the NASDAQ 100 ETF, and it represents tech stocks. So, what you want to say is Broadcom, let's say Broadcom is trading at a gain of 2%, and the Qs are trading at a gain of 1%. Well, Broadcom is relatively strong in relation to its respective indice. So Broadcom is showing relative strength. So if you're bullish on Broadcom that day or that week, then that's a great piece of information to have about it. You always want to focus on, if you really want to go long something, you want to find something that's relatively strong to its respective indice. That's the optimal situation. If you really want to go short something, you want to find something that's relatively weak with regard or in comparison to its respective indice. So let's use that for an example. Let's say, Alcoa, for example, ticker symbol AA. Let's say that Alcoa is trading down 5%. That's been a real weak one lately. And the SPY is trading down 2.5%. So we've got AA is relatively weak in comparison to SPY. AA is down 5%, SPY is down 2.5%. So AA is relatively weak. It's down more. There's more selling pressure on AA versus its respective indice SPY. And if you're looking at small caps, you want to look at the Russell. If you're looking at the blue chips, you want to look at the Dow, Tech, NASDAQ, QQ, and large mid caps SPY. So here's what I like to do. I like to say, I pretty much make myself an Excel sheet, or I just write it down on a piece of paper. I'm kind of a pen and paper guy more than I am an Excel guy when it comes to trading, just because I can reference it easier without having to switch screens and go away from my trading screen. So let's say, for example, we've got, this is how I like to put it out on my piece of paper. I've got the stock column, the indice column, relatively strong, relatively weak. And this is what I do. We've got the stock, Apple. Then I say, okay, it's Apple. Respective indice are the Qs. Apple, this today is trading, let's just say plus 3%. The Qs, plus 0.6%. So then I check off, does this mean Apple is relatively strong or relatively weak? Well, Apple's trading plus 3%. The Qs are trading plus 0.6%. Apple's relatively strong. I check off the relatively strong column for Apple. So Apple's going to be on my buy side watch list, which we talked about watch list last week. And I did mention last week that I was going to cover relative strength and relative weakness in the near future because I talked about it a little bit in the previous video. So here I am intertwining the two videos as promised. And let's just say GE. Let's say GE is trading at minus 2%. And we're going to look at DIA with relation to GE. And DIA is, say, minus 0.2%. 0.8%. GE is down 2%. DIA is down 0.8%. What does that mean? That means GE is relatively weak. So if GE is on your short list, that's a great piece of information to have. GE is on your short list, it's relatively weak. Keep it on your short list. That's a great, that's definitely a great one to watch. You want to focus on relatively weak stocks for short candidates, relatively strong stocks for long candidates.